Flipping items on the auction house and bazaar is an extremely effective way of earning coins in Hypixel Skyblock, but most notably, it's the oldest money-making method and one that will remain in the game forever. As a result, mastering the ability to reliably flip items is an incredibly useful skill, because this will allow any player to always have consistent income to spend on whatever their heart desires. That being said, flipping can also be quite daunting, and at times a little bit overwhelming, making it a relatively unappealing money-making method for a lot of players, especially those who are just getting started with the game. So, I've compiled my most valuable tips for everything flipping to create the ultimate Hypixel Skyblock flipping guide. Forever. To answer these questions, I'm going to cover the absolute basics before we dive deep into the main content for this video. Flipping at its core is a very simple concept. You buy an item or multiple items for a low price in respect to said item, and then you resell it for a higher price, keeping the difference between the two prices as profit. The item that you choose to flip doesn't really matter, and will usually be decided based on how much money you have at the time. The beauty with flipping, unlike a lot of other money-making methods though, is that it will never become outdated, because as long as there is a player-run market and people that are buying and selling goods, this will always allow you to take advantage of supply and demand to profit by just buying low and selling high. This also makes flipping very consistent, because major updates will never kill the money-making method as a whole, but instead it will create new flips based off of new metas and phase out old flips from previous metas. However, to develop a better understanding of flipping as a whole, I'm going to break it down into three main sections for this video: entry-level techniques, intermediate techniques, and then advanced techniques. Each section's requirements will become increasingly more demanding the further in the video we go, but the more demanding a technique is, the better the expected results are. So, now that we have all of that information out of the way, let's move on to the first section of today's video, the entry-level flipping techniques. The simplest and least expensive method I'll be covering in today's video has most definitely got to be bazaar margin flipping. With this technique, the first step is to browse around in the bazaar until you find an item that has a pretty big difference between the buy and sell price. Once you have located your item of choice, you then make a buy order or multiple buy orders for as much of the item as you'd like to flip, and then you place your order 0.1 coins above the last. Then from here, all you have to do is wait for players all across Skyblock to instantly sell the item you made a buy order for, and then once that order fills, you can take all the items you've just purchased and relist them as a sell offer. All that's left now is to wait until the sell offer fills, and once it does, the difference between the price you originally paid and the price you just sold at will result in the profit that you earn. When it comes to looking for the perfect item to flip, this takes a little bit of practice, but is something that you can definitely get the hang of pretty quickly. For starters, the supply and demand of the item will greatly affect how much money you will actually earn off that item. And secondly, the effect of the sell offer tax on the selling price is also a major influence. By default, the bazaar will tax all of your sell offers by 1.25%. But with the community shop, you can get this number down to 1.125% if you don't spend any money on gems. It's really important to keep this information in mind, because a flip that might seem profitable at first glance can easily be much worse than you originally anticipated. Supply and demand is also critical, because if you take an item such as soul fragments and choose to flip them outside of an active spooky festival, the likelihood of your orders from actually filling is extremely low. This is because soul fragments are an item that can only be obtained via spooky fishing, and if there isn't a spooky festival facilitating for the production of new soul fragments, any soul fragments that are going to be sold on the bazaar would have had to have been obtained from a previous event, and as a result, the supply is going to be so low that you probably won't make any money at all. The more you flip different items and the more practice you get, the better your understanding of the markets will become, and over time, finding reliable bazaar flips whenever you need them will become more of a second nature as opposed to a challenging task. There are a few websites and Discord bots that are supposed to help you find reliable flips, and these usually use the Skyblock API in some way, though I'd honestly never recommend using any of these. This is because the items that these tools tell you to flip are also being given to hundreds if not thousands of other players, meaning that you will always have competitive markets against other people. That being said, for a newer, inexperienced flipper, these websites might actually be really useful to get things started, so I will leave a link to some bazaar flipping websites in the description for those of you that want to check them out. Moving away from the bazaar though, another very simple entry-level flip has got to be standard auction flipping, and this technique comes with a few variations. Auction flipping consists of stalking any page of the auction house and sorting the auctions by ending soon, so that way you can see all of the auctions that are going to end within the next 5 to 25 minutes. From here, if you notice an item that's going to be sold for a price vastly lower than the cheapest bin price, you bid on it and then wait for the item to either be sold to you at that cheaper price, or you get into a bidding war with other players. If you do get into a bidding war, it's typically best to stop once the item reaches a price that's less than 15% cheaper than the average price, because at that rate, even if you do win the item, you'll only be pocketing about 15% of its original value as profit. However, if you comfortably won the item with a solid profit margin, you can relist the item as a bin auction instead of a regular auction. The last step from here is to then wait for the bin auction to sell, and then once it does, the amount of money that you earn is once again the difference between the price you paid and the price you sold at. Similarly to bazaar flipping, finding good auction flips also takes a lot of practice and experience. While selling tax and supply and demand are also factors that influence how much profit you'll make, they aren't anywhere near as influential as they are with bazaar flipping. This doesn't mean that you should ignore selling tax entirely though, as there is a chance that you do lose money selling an item if you overbid for it initially. Similarly, if you end up bidding on an oddly specific item that doesn't really have much demand, it may take a lot longer for that item to sell, resulting in much slower profits. So all in all, when it comes to the most basic entry-level flipping techniques, your go-to methods are either going to be the standard bazaar or standard auction flipping. Both of these methods are easily scalable and can be done with even as little as 100 coins, and as a result, it's the perfect flipping technique for newer players to get familiar with the player-run markets. However, the profits from these methods start to become a little bit underwhelming once you have a few tens of millions of coins in your possession, which is why I suggest you try some of the more intermediate flipping techniques once you've got a substantial amount of money to work with. The intermediate flipping technique that I have covered in this video is called craft flipping, and the reason that I'm classifying as intermediate over entry level is because it usually requires more than just a few coins in your purse. As the name implies, craft flipping is essentially when you purchase all of the required ingredients for a specific item off the bazaar, auction house, or even NPC merchants. And then with those ingredients, you turn them all into the desired item to sell directly on the auction house or bazaar. The vast majority of craftable items also require the recipe to be unlocked in some way, whether it's from a collection or a Slayer reward, and this is exactly what separates the method from being entry level. Most of the profit with craft flips comes from the fact that a lot of people may not have the collection unlocked, and as a result, they pay a premium to buy the item outright since they're unable to make it themselves. As a result, when it comes to looking for craft flips, it comes down to having a little bit of common game knowledge and pinpointing areas of the game where people are spending their coins frequently. To provide a simple example for this video, picking out a weapon or armor piece that's high in demand, and something like a Juju shortbow could easily be a profitable craft flip. Not only is the Juju recipe pretty hard to obtain for most players, but the average player who is even capable of using a Juju shortbow is likely more inclined to just buy the bow straight off the auction house as opposed to just making it themselves. You can even take this a step further and put some basic enchantments, reforges, dungeonize the weapon, or even recombobulate it, and ultimately, it just comes down to whether it increases the profit margin by a substantial enough amount. All in all, the versatility with craft flips is one that I personally love so much, and from my experience, it has most definitely made me some of the best profit I've gotten from flipping entirely. However, when you do start nearing the few hundreds of millions of coins, craft flipping starts to become less and less effective, which is why I'll be covering 2 more flipping techniques that are slightly more advanced and make significantly more money. And now we've reached the final section of this video, the flipping techniques that truly make the best money. These techniques generally require you to have above 100 million coins at your disposal, but for the best results, having a few hundred million or even a few billion coins will definitely work the best. The first technique I'll be covering is lowballing, and while the barrier of entry for lowballing is arguably low enough to be classed as intermediate, some of the best lowballing results are definitely obtained when you have a few hundred millions of coins to work with. For those that don't know, lowballing is when you offer to buy people's gear at a lower price than what's listed as the lowest bin price on the auction house, and depending on what item you lowball, the profits can be really good. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, why on earth would anyone intentionally sell their items for cheaper than the auction house? And while that's entirely true, there is a surprisingly high demographic of players that simply want to quick sell lots of expensive gear and get their coins as fast as possible. These players don't mind if they lose out on 10 to 20% of the overall profits they could have made, because if it guarantees that their items will be bought out immediately, that's ultimately what they're looking for. This technique, once again, is simply profiting off of people's laziness. Players don't want to wait for their gear to sell and just want their money right now, so you, as the more patient player, can pick up all their stuff for cheaper and make some substantial profit in the long run. The best ways to lowball items is actually quite simple, and as stupid and ineffective as this might sound, it's literally to go into mega hubs advertising that you're lowballing people's gear. There are Skyblock Discord servers that will have trading channels for you to post similar advertisements in as well, though honestly, it's a lot easier to go straight in game and just directly target players in major hubs. Telling people to party invite you if they're interested or to visit your island if they're willing to sell their gear is the best way.
Today in Hypixel Skyblock, I'm going to be going over 3 different money making methods and seeing how much they make in 15 minutes. Let's get straight into it. So for this first method, what you want to do is you want to go over to the Dwarven Mines. Over here you can find treasurite holders or treasure holders, and what this means is if you farm them, they drop things like starfall, they drop treasurite, and they also drop salmon opal. So these are a few drops that you can get from them, and it can be very profitable if you can actually do it right. So let's go over to the spot right here. So you want to come to this area right here. As you can see on the map in the top left, it's in the upper mines. You find it up here. There's a little entrance over here into this water bit, and this is where you can just run around farming them and keep getting that money. So we're going to be doing it for 15 minutes. Once it hits 10 AM in the top right, we'll be doing it for 15 minutes, and we're going to see how much money we can actually make from this. And what we get in 15 minutes, times it by 4, and that's what we're going to get overall. So I'll see you back when we've got the profit. Right, and so it's been 15 minutes. Let's go straight back to the hub. This is what the inventory is looking like. We've got a couple of stacks of starfall, quite a few salmon opals, and only 3 treasurites. So if we sell instantly, we get 776k from 15 minutes. Whereas if we create sell offers, we're going to get 810k from the starfall, which is what we are going to do. So that's 810 plus 23, so that's already 830k. And then the treasurites, we create a sell offer, it's 15k. So we're going to be looking at around 850k. So from this one method alone, you're going to be getting 3.4 million an hour, and don't forget all of the combat XP that you can get from this. And the bestiary unlocks, so that is an amazing method and I would highly recommend it. So for this next method, you want to come over to the Great Ice Wall. Here you'll find these ice walkers, and if you kill them, you can get glacialite jewels, glacialite fragments, and glacialite armor. So we're going to be doing this for 15 minutes, and we'll see how much money we can actually get from this. So let's go. Okay, and now the 15 minutes have finished. We've managed to get some stuff, so let's go straight to the hub and let's see how much we've actually managed to earn in 15 minutes. So from jewels alone, we managed to get 10 jewels, which is one. So overall, we've got 1. So from jewels alone, we managed to get 10 jewels, which is 1. So and that is the 15 minutes over. So let's go straight to the hub and let's find how much we have actually made. So in 15 minutes we made 1.7 million, which is pretty bad for summoning eye. However, I'm on right now at a peak time. It's early morning, so a lot of people are on right now, and I really don't enjoy summoning grinding because the people that use ice ones, and you've also got people that are using short bows, and it's just people sit there camping it, and I'm trying to run around with a sword. So it is, if you are a berserk, it is a harder money making method. profit, and this way you can just run around farming them and keep getting that money. So we're going to be doing it for 15 minutes. Once it hits 10 AM in the top right, we'll be doing it for 15 minutes, and we're going to see how much money we can actually make from this. And what we get in 15 minutes, times it by 4, and that's what we're going to get overall. So I'll see you back when we've got the profit. Seeing how much they make in 15 minutes. Let's get straight. And what this means is if you farm, then they drop things like Starfall, they drop Treasurite, and they also drop Salmon Opal. So these are a few drops that you can get from them, and it can be very profitable if you can actually do it right. So let's go over to the spot right here. So you for 15 minutes, and we're going to see how so these are